2, 1. Oh, it's going. No messages popping up. We are ready to rock and roll.
Outstanding.
So, Dan, what do you do for your day job, if you don't mind me asking? I know we were just talking.
Yes, I work in the contracting department of a government research and development laboratory.
Ooh, super official. Yeah. That's awesome.
It sounds a lot cooler than it is. I'm mostly like reviewing papers and
it sounds really cool.
Signing boilerplate agreements and stuff. It sounds really cool. So if you don't dig too deep, it sounds impressive.
I like it. I think that's awesome. We're just going to wait a couple minutes for people to log on. I always try to do this. Just get everybody in here. Oh, so you haven't had, did they close down for Corona at all at your job, or have you been working through this whole thing?
I've been working through the whole thing, but luckily they moved us to full remote like back in March. So I've just been working from home for most of the year, which I'm honestly not going to complain about.
Yeah.
It cuts out my hour commute every day, and I get to spend more time with the family, and it's definitely a cushy little setup. I'm not looking forward to going back whenever it is that we do.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all. I think that's we've seen so many of the little positive things, like getting to spend more time with your family and the kids being home when they were home, you know. Just have to take it for the good.
Yeah, and it's a little challenging not having any face-to-face time either with, supervisors or your customer base. So trying to do everything via email and, the occasional Zoom call definitely presents its challenges, but I think that the benefits outweigh any costs. At least for me, they do. I know a lot of people are having trouble with working from home, being isolated from coworkers and stuff. So I'm very fortunate for it to be working out as well as it has been for me. Yeah,
that's a great perspective to take. I think that's just what we have to do right now, is look at the positive. It is nice to kind of slow down and learning. There's so many things I'm learning because I'm such a hands-on learner. Like I need someone to show me what to do, and then I need to physically do it. Be like, is that okay? So now I'm kind of learning how to be a little more autonomous, and I'm like, okay, if we have to figure it out over Zoom, we can do it somehow.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have like really stepped up to do to go from no online interactions, at least, in a lot of areas with, a lot of schools and businesses doing nothing online, to all of a sudden making a complete 180 and doing everything online, not just business and school, but also doing all your socializing online and everything else. I'm really impressed with how a lot of people and organizations have really stepped up for that.
Yeah, I agree. It is, you sink or you swim, and it's amazing what we're capable of when we're in the situation to have to know what we're capable of.
Yeah, exactly. You never know what you can do unless you have to do it. So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's giving us a lot of skills, that's for sure. All right, Dan, I'm going to just go ahead and do our little introduction here. So hello, everybody. Sure. My name is Alexis with Mastermind Adventures. Mastermind Adventures is a team of creative professionals who are conquering isolation and loneliness by building community through play. One of our initiatives is the Game Master for Hire program, GM for Hire for short. These are awesome folks and storytellers, actors, and other performers who can bring the world of role-playing games to life for you and your friends, no matter what your experience level. So today we will be talking with Danielle Burns, one of our Game Masters for Hire. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for being here. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing remarkably well considering, it's 7:00 on a Tuesday.
I know, right there with you. It's the vibe. We're lifting it up. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your origin story, Dan?
Yeah, sure. So I was always kind of raised with the idea of play and imagination as being a really big part of just what life is. I was really lucky to have, parents and grandparents that indulged a lot of that. So I kind of always grew up having people around me that encouraged me to pursue, really weird interests and fascinations. I ended up kind of going a different direction after high school and joined the United States Air Force. And I did 6 years with the Air Force, and then came out and realized that it had been way too long since I had been weird. and kind of threw myself full force into, how can I be a professional weirdo? How can I indulge in all in all these niche things that I love, and that. not be homeless and start, dealing with my addiction to food and shelter kind of had to come first. But I was lucky enough to really fall into a lot of opportunities to kind of direct my weirdness into really useful ways. Particularly, I've always kind of gravitated towards work that empowers kids and teens to kind of stay weird and be in touch with their imagination and use that as a way to help solve their problems. So, and one thing to another kind of, led me to the world of sword fighting and living characters and role playing and live action role playing. And then, all kind of culminating with me kind of falling in with Mastermind, and teaching, and just being able to again kind of be a professional weirdo, and awesome. Get lauded for it, which is really great.
That's exactly how I feel. You just kind of like stumble. Isn't it funny how you just kind of end up, you follow your interest and you just kind of end up on the path you're meant to be on, and those things fall into your peripheral for.
Yeah, and I think that would happen. People talk to me all the time and they're like, how did you find yourself doing this weird thing that seems to be tailor-made to you? And I'm like, well, I just kept doing the things I wanted to do. And I think so many people are discouraged from taking those steps and saying, no, that's not, adults don't do that, or that's not you need to get a grown-up job, or you constantly get all this nonsense from the outside telling you that this isn't something that you should pursue. And I think the better you are at blocking that out, a lot of times you'll be surprised at how far it can take you.
I agree 1,000,000%. Everything is out there, anything you can want your life to be like, and it usually doesn't manifest even in the ways you imagine. Like, I didn't think I'd ever be doing something this cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have 2 questions for you. So did your experience in the Air Force kind of shape the way that you game, or that you act as a game master?
It did and it didn't. I started playing Dungeons and Dragons in high school, and it played for a little bit and then kind of stopped, mainly because it was really hard to find a group of people that knew what they were doing and that we could play with. And I realized, especially in the Air Force, there are a whole lot of closet geeks, and you just have to speak the right language to kind of suss them out. And I had kind of fallen in with a group of friends that had all played or were interested in playing, and we just decided to make it happen. It's nice to kind of have a captive audience, because we were all away from home. I was living in Texas at this time, and so it was a way for us to kind of build that adopted family that you kind of need when you're far away. So having that ready-made community of people that you automatically speak the same language as was really great. But I think what influenced my style of gaming most of all is the very first time I got deployed to the Middle East. Again, I met up with a couple of people that were really big nerds, and I just so happened to have packed a D20 in my bag. For no real reason. I just kind of like a talisman. Like, I'm just going to bring this with me because it makes me feel comfortable. And for 3 months while we were deployed out in the desert, we played this whole epic campaign with no rule books, with no character sheets, with just a D20, kind of letting that help us guide our story. And that was the first time I really realized how little you need to play, how little, I'm sure we could have done it with a coin and just, heads or tails, succeed or fail. But, just having a D20, you can play anywhere in the world. And as long as you've got the right people. And that was probably, again, it's only tangentially related to the military, but that was probably the biggest lesson I gained from that kind of makes me the type of player and game master that I am now.
Wow, that's such a cool. I love that you sound a little bit there. And probably like such a safe haven in a way, because you're away from home, you're in this totally different place with the same people all the time. That's so nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally, and we saw each other all the time. So it wasn't like you had to worry about someone missing a session, because you all lived in the same place. Like we ate together, we showered together. Like I knew where they were at all times. So we never had to worry. It's very much a captive audience. Nobody was, going on vacation while you're out in the Middle East. So it worked out real well.
And I think that's good. That's going to be something that people notice is an attribute to how creative of a GM you are, because you've had to use the bare minimum and just be like, all right, we are running on creativity here. Let's do this.
Yeah, and it's great I found that it's really useful for playing with new players, especially because they get really overwhelmed with the character sheets and the rule books, and so being able to say, let's not worry about that for this session. Let's just focus on playing, and we can bring in the tools and the resources and the more strict rules as we go, kind of once you get comfortable. So being able to strip everything back to the bare minimum is really useful at getting new players interested and excited and invested, and then introducing, all of the math that sneaks its way into role playing sometimes.
That's so cool. I love that whole story. Now I have a million more questions. I'm going to put those aside for a second. I was going to ask about your sword fighting and how you got into that, and if you can just explain your process with that a little bit.
Yeah, again, it's something that I kind of fell into just out of a desire to not pretend I wasn't a giant nerd anymore. So I'd gotten out of the military. I was in college using my GI Bill. So I was lucky in that I was going to college and getting paid to go to college at the same time. But I still wanted a job. So I wasn't seriously looking, but every now and then, I'd comb through Craigslist or wherever else I could find want ads. And I saw this ad on Craigslist that said, sword fighters wanted, no experience, will train you. And I was like, well, I've been waiting my whole life for this. Of course I'm going to answer that ad. Because I'd always, ever since I was like 12, I think, I got my first sword. And my uncle had always collected them, and I'd always been fascinated by them and fascinated by the Middle Ages and armored combat. And so I saw that, and I was like, yes, like, of course I want to do this. So I went, interviewed, and it was like a sword fighting LARP school. So they did all these classes and role-playing games with kids to kind of help, teach both social emotional learning and some academic stuff through role playing. And they also had a historic weapons program, which is kind of like a history class where you get to hit each other with foam swords. And so I was like, all right, obviously this is what I want to do. I was lucky enough to get the job, and started training up with one of the lead instructors. And he was an Eastern martial arts guy. He had trained in Jeet Kune Do for many years, and he was teaching this German longsword class without really knowing. Like, he knew the basics of it because he was a martial artist, and there's a finite number of ways the human body can move, whether you're in Asia or North America. It's all the same. There's a significant amount of overlap, and the students were having questions. And I found that I was able to answer a lot more of the questions than the instructor was at that point, just because I had kind of obsessively been reading about sword fighting and things like that for so many years. And so it was this weird, for a couple of months, we had this relationship that over time sort of switched, and I became the instructor for the class, and he was another student learning more of the European martial arts. So I had the history background, and I had the knowledge of the weapons. I just didn't have the physical training. Like, I hadn't actually trained in any of these styles or anything. So having martial artists there that were like, well, I can teach you, if you know the history, I can teach you how your body's supposed to move. And I just kind of fell in love with it. It gave me an excuse to get even deeper into this thing that I've always been fascinated by. And I just never stopped. And then eventually I left that company, and, got married and had a kid, and realized that I still wanted to do sword fighting. And I realized, well, I kind of learned everything I needed to learn. Like, I looked around at kind of what was available, and I'm like, well, I'm kind of an expert in this really weird area. And I didn't plan to be. It just kind of happened because nobody's putting that much time or effort into it. So I started buying, I already had a lot of my own swords and armor. And I mean, if I were to pan around in my little office here, I've got suits of armor everywhere and swords in cases, and I'll see it.
I feel like I'm talking to a real life samurai movie character.
Yeah, there's my samurai armor and my sword case, and there's some Roman legionary armor tucked away in there. So it all just, and even all that stuff, it kind of happened. I made friends with someone who was a collector. He was a fellow veteran. And I found him because he was like, hey, I'm selling this full set of Roman armor that, he had worn it to march Hadrian's Wall. And he's like, I'm getting ready to move to the Caribbean. You want to buy my, I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I kind of built this collection of stuff. And now, when we're not in the middle of a global pandemic, I kind of pack everything up and I go to, schools and libraries and festivals and things like that. And I do classes and workshops and demonstrations for kids and adults, because you will never have an audience's attention like you have it when you have a sword in your hand.
No,
I think anyone that does any kind of public speaking, bring a sword with you, and it will improve your public speaking game 110%, guaranteed.
This is award-winning advice. You should write a book.
I think it really is. You are never
coming book. He's gonna teach you.
Yeah, you're never as confident as you are, when you're holding a sword or wearing chainmail. Can't recommend it enough. And I just kept falling. I kept pushing forward, and suddenly, at random, I would meet someone that's like, oh, well, I've got this connection at this place, and do you want to come speak at this library that I'm a board member of, or going to Renaissance fairs and making friends with other people kind of in this really weird niche community that's been super welcoming. And, one of the things I always tell kids is, I introduce myself as a professional sword fighter, and I say, yes, that is something you can actually make a living at. It's not a great living. it pays, you might have to have a day job to pay the bills.
It's a great living. It's just a multifaceted living.
Yes, exactly. It's a great living. It's not the greatest paycheck in the world. Again, it's that pesky addiction to food and shelter.
Wish we could just get rid of that.
But you know what? It pays for me to buy more swords and armor. So
very rewarding.
That's a win, as far as I'm concerned.
Wow. That's an amazing story. I feel like it all just called out to you, and you were like, yep, here I am, ready for this.
That's really all it is. Like, I feel like I should have some message about, work towards your dreams and this and that. But I've kind of fallen into all of these things by just being honest with myself about what I love, and then just being open to it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you're in your flow, totally. And when you're in your flow, it all kind of comes to you.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. See, we're getting the why. I'm getting the why. The wisdom is coming through the screen. I'm just taking it all in. But, you mentioned a little bit about classes you had done with kids, and then you were talking about how role-playing skills transferred over to life skills. And would you just mind talking about some of the classes you did, some of the Outschool classes, or just programs in general?
Yeah. So after leaving that sword school and kind of feeling like I had kind of been trained up and was ready to try and take some things on my own, a very close friend of mine asked me to be a part of a project that he wanted to work on. He really wanted to. We had both been in the summer camp industry before as well, and he really wanted to create a LARP summer camp, but geared specifically towards teenagers, and for the focus to really be collaborative problem solving and this social and emotional learning that is really, now I think they call them 21st century skills because they're big buzzwords in education, but there isn't really any place that's doing it super. Like if you go into public schools, they're trying to introduce a lot of this stuff, but it's difficult because a lot of them are having to teach to a test, and they're kind of shoehorning these, intangible life skills wherever they can, and they're putting in a lot of work. Public school teachers are absolute rock stars as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah.
But they have so many constraints and demands on their time that it's really hard to really explore some of these non-tangible ideas. And so we worked together, him and I and a bunch of other friends of ours, again, all these people that we had kind of just, we kind of looked around and we were like, oh, well, we have school teachers and, therapists and psychologists and artists, and we have access to all these people that have all the specialties that we want to be able to teach these kids. And so we kind of started picking brains and built a really cool program to really put kids into a world where they could make mistakes and where they could fail. And I think that's the really great thing about role playing in general is the stakes are really low. If especially for kids, if you put them in a fantastical situation, but you give them a really hard choice to make, not only does it give them the opportunity to make a choice that they may have, that the rest of the world may think they're not capable of making yet. And if they do a good job, they're going to remember that. That's something that's going to become, even if it was their character that did it, that's something that's going to become a part of them because they were able to, work with their peers to solve a problem. And if things go wrong, it doesn't really matter because they didn't fail. Their character screwed up. We'll try again next time. So you have really high reward and really low risk for role playing. And I think it's really a really special way to reach kids and to teach some of these soft skills that can be really treacherous, especially for kids and teens. Social interaction when you're in middle school, social interaction is an absolute nightmare. It is terrifying, and the stakes are through the roof, or at least, to your 13-year-old mind, your botched interaction in the cafeteria could be the end of your life. But if you're practicing these communication skills and problem solving skills, and you're realizing, that the orc gladiator maybe isn't that different from, the football player that might pick on you, or, trying to win over the beautiful barmaid isn't all that different from maybe, talking to that girl in your math class that you've had a crush on. And you can build those skills and take those chances. And if you fail, it's not that big a deal. The repercussions aren't there.
Wow.
So that's what really draws me to role playing as an educational tool. And also you mentioned I teach on Outschool, which I think is a really great platform that's kind of taking off again because of this super weird situation we all find ourselves in, where you can't go out and do something interesting. You've got to find something interesting you can do at home. And a lot of what I teach are history classes, but they're living character history classes. So I don't just talk to kids about knights or Vikings or pirates. When class starts, I'm in full costume with an accent and props, and I am a Viking, I am a knight, I am a pirate. So they're asking me questions about my life, and having the experience and being prepared enough to answer them in a way that makes them feel like they're talking to a real person kind of plucked out of time. You'd be shocked how much more engaged they are.
Yeah.
You mentioned too, like you're a hands-on learner. You learn by doing. It's a lot easier to learn about Vikings by talking to a Viking than by reading about them in a book. Wow. So that's, giving kids the opportunity to learn in ways that usually aren't presented to them. I think it's something I've always been drawn to, and it's something I'm really passionate about, and it's part of what makes me so excited now to be a part of Mastermind, because that's the whole goal is telling stories and teaching lessons through playing games in ways that you're not going to get in a classroom. Some people may not thrive sitting at a desk listening to a teacher, or sitting on a Zoom meeting listening to a lecture. But if you put them in a role-playing game, or you give them access to a LARP, or you give kids the freedom to kind of let their imaginations run wild, which I don't think we give. Once kids get to a certain age, we don't give them enough of that anymore. You'd be really surprised at how much good, useful information you can absorb, even as an adult, from just playing a game with somebody that can tell a good story.
Yeah.
So that's my very long rambling answer to that, but it's obviously something I'm really passionate about.
That's okay. That was really awesome, honestly. And I think we actually talked about this particular aspect of role playing a lot, and how kids can transfer the skills of role playing into their real life. And I think you had one of the most wonderful explanations for it. You said all the right words, and I can tell you're very passionate. That's awesome. So what is your personal mission with Mastermind? We kind of got into this, and I'm not even sure if I already asked this because I went off on a tangent. Just curious about your origin story. But if you just want to condense your personal mission into something. Yeah.
So I had kind of been in contact with the founder, Kristen, off and on for a while through, again, just kind of being in the same orbit. We had come in contact with each other. And I found out that she was, kicking around this idea of game masters for hire, and that this was something that Mastermind was going to kind of start pivoting towards. And I was really excited by it. So, I reached out and wanted to be a part of the GM for hire cadre. And in the course of the conversations that I had with her and kind of the rest of the leadership team and the admin staff at Mastermind, it was decided. So I didn't actually come on as part of the initial GM for hire cadre. Instead, I came on as part of the programs team, because I spent time talking with Amanda from programs, and the amount of freedom and inventiveness that was encouraged got me so jazzed up. It's like, one of my first questions, what do you need people to teach? And they're like, well, what do you want to teach? we just need more program. Well, what kind of programs do you want people to develop? What kind of programs do you want to develop? What kind of programs do you think are going to be effective? So right away I was like, okay, well, I'm definitely on board then. If I'm already being, somebody that, it's not like I'd been with the company for years and they trusted me. It's, right off the bat, they're recognizing that, these are creative people, and we're going to pick their brains and try things. The willingness of Mastermind to just try things was really inspiring. And so I'm still kind of getting my feet underneath me, trying to support the GM for hire, the GMs for hire, and some of the other things that are kind of going on behind the scenes. But I'm really excited to start looking at, once we kind of figure out what the future really looks like. Are we planning in-person programs? Is it all going to be virtual programs? It's kind of hard to really say one way or the other. But one thing I'm really looking forward to is trying to develop programs that are kind of self-sustaining. Not self-sustaining, but I want to train future masterminds. That's what I want. I want to create programs that get people excited about role-playing, excited about storytelling, and teaching people how to use storytelling to teach lessons, how to get these really tangible real-world benefits out of this amazing subculture of role-playing games. So it's not, as much as I love playing role-playing games and running games, I don't know that I'd say that that's like my mission for my time at Mastermind. I want to get more people excited about playing games and running games and making games that make a difference. And so if I can kind of, condense some of the lessons I learned accidentally and kind of teach them to people purposefully, I think that we'll have a whole generation of game players and game masters and storytellers that are not only going to be, hopefully they'll come right in and join us as part of this team, because we always need more wonderful, creative people. But hopefully they're also going to go out into the world with those skills, and, maybe we'll see more of that mindset in the corporate world or in, traditional education, and giving people those skills to be able to use gaming and storytelling as a way to teach and reach people that might be a little bit more difficult to reach than others, I think is a really worthwhile thing. And I'm so excited and so grateful that, again, I get to do it that somebody's going to pay me to do that. That's fabulous.
Wow, that is so cool. I agree on every point. You're hitting on all the storytelling aspect. You're really resonating with my soul here. I'm just like said yes and wow so many times on this interview, and that's exactly how I feel. Just yes, wow. You're a true born teacher. You really are. Oh, that's so cool. So, what is your experience with LARPing, and where do you think your love for, well, we've kind of gotten into your love for role playing, but like your love for yourself getting to play and be in that character?
At the where I initially learned to sword fight, and at that same school, like I said, they had a lot of LARP programs for kids. So I'm in a weird position as I got into LARP. I started running LARPs long before I ever played in one.
Oh, wow.
It kind of, in a weird way, it makes sense, because I'm also one of those people, like I'm the forever GM. I very rarely get to play in a game, just because I enjoy the storytelling aspect of it so much that it's hard for me to give that up to other people. So I'm trying to think. I don't know that I've ever actually been in a LARP purely as a player.
Oh, wow.
I've been like NPCs, and I've been staff and kind of logistics and working behind, but I don't think I've ever just been a player in a LARP. Now that I actually think about it, which is kind of bizarre. But even just being an NPC, being a part of the world, the thing that I really love about it is kind of what it does feed back into what I think the benefits of role playing are, is I get to detach myself for a little bit.
Yeah.
I can I can play a character that's really cocky when I'm not the most self-confident person in the world, but I get to pretend I am. And for, those 3 or 4 hours, I am. I'm a cocky, self-possessed. I walk differently. I breathe differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, I can be someone that's like, I love playing bad guys because I like to think I'm a pretty nice guy. But the ability to kind of be mean and be, explore these sides of myself and just human nature that aren't socially acceptable to explore. You can't wake up and go to the bank and decide I'm going to be a jerk today and be mean.
Well, I mean, you could, but
you could, but you shouldn't.
Yeah. That is so cool, though. I mean, that you really hit the nail on the head there. It's like we're channeling. We all have these aspects of ourselves being on the spectrum of just being a human. We're capable of everything between good and evil, and in some way that all lives inside of us. So it's like a very healthy way to be able to explore your shadow aspects and be able to get just like, because it's a little part of you, right? And when you're playing it, you're like, okay, I can feel how this is a part of me, but I don't have to express it in a way that's dangerous or hurtful or going to end me up somewhere bad.
Yeah, and there's like a distinct end to it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day or at the end of the scene, when you need to, or if you're working at a LARP and you need to transition to a different character, it's literally, you take the hat off or the mask or the cloak or whatever it is, and that character goes away. And so it is, it's a really safe, like self-contained way to play with different aspects of your own personality with really low stakes. Because if even in my own experience, I've discovered parts of myself that I'm like, oh, that interaction felt really comfortable and was a lot more successful than it would have been if I had done it the way I would usually do it. So I get to take that lesson and make it a part of who I am. And then I also get to do, the fun things where, maybe you go a little bit too far and make a kid cry. It's only happened a handful of times, but sometimes you get involved. Not intentionally, but it's happened. But the stakes are still fairly. You can take that hat off. You can take off the villain mustache, and not only is it no longer a part of you, but especially when you're like role playing with kids, they get it so fast. Where a kid could be terrified of me in one scene because of whatever character I'm playing, and 20 minutes later encounter me as a different character. Nothing has changed other than I'm wearing a different outfit for the most part, but our interaction completely starts fresh. The kids get, and role players in general, I think, are so used to that kind of code switching. They get, this is a different person. That interaction is not representative of everyone or not representative of that person. They're playing a role. So again, it's really high reward if something works and really low stakes if something doesn't work. And
very cool.
I can't think of anywhere else you get that. It's such a luxury.
Yeah. All stems from storytelling. It really is just being able to get into those roles. It's so cool. What a cool observation. Wow. Do you have any open campaigns or streams or just any more epic stuff going on? I know I brought you off the rails a little bit, but you have so much.
No, it's fine. I'm not with Mastermind. Like I said, I've just been kind of supporting the GMs for hire, and we play tested a really great game created by another Mastermind, Sarah, that I got the opportunity to help run. That was a ton of fun. But I'm kind of, as I'm settling in, I'm kind of focusing on that support role, and so not running any active campaigns or anything. I am teaching classes on Outschool, as well as a platform called Your Teachable Moment, which is for adult classes. So Outschool is all kids, YTM is all adults. So again, just trying to explore this weird new world of virtual learning, and since I can't go out to festivals anymore, I've got to find a way to interact with people somehow. But if you are interested, if anybody watching is interested in the other stuff that I do, you can go to danburnsswords.com. That's my website. It's got a list of all the in-person events I do when I start doing in-person events again. It's got a list of all my Outschool classes and links that you can click on to go and enroll your kid in a class, special events and things like that. I do weddings. I'm actually ordained. I can legally perform weddings in every state in New England.
Will you wear your suit of armor and bring your sword?
Yeah, if you want to get married by a knight or a samurai or a Viking or something, yeah, get in touch.
Now I want to get married. I need to figure this out so quick because I feel.
Yeah, so you might be putting the cart in front of the horse a little bit there.
That's good motivation.
I don't know if that's the best motivation to get married, but when you do, keep me in mind. Yeah, so I mean that's kind of where my focus has been. I'm really hoping to have some. I'm having some discussions with some other masterminds about some cool games and programs that may be coming down the pipeline in the future, but I don't want to mention anything because nothing's set in stone yet. But there's so much. The great thing about the great thing about this company, the great thing about Mastermind is there's so much going on behind the scenes. Like all the people that are watching and that have been following kind of this new iteration of Mastermind with the GM for hire and all this great stuff that we're starting to do. I would just say, I really think Mastermind is just getting started. Keep watching, keep your eyes open, keep listening. There's a lot of really cool stuff in the works, and I could not be more excited to be a part of it. I have not been this energized in a very long time, so I'm really excited.
So good. That's so good. I feel the same way. It's just such a cool group of people coming together. Like everyone's so unique and so different, and yet so the same.
Yeah, like I've only been with Mastermind. I started in like the middle of October, and I feel, it's like when you find your people, like the people that speak your language, you just kind of know. And this is definitely, I feel like I kind of found my tribe, and I'm really excited to keep exploring it.
That's awesome, Dan. I love to hear all of that, and I think everyone else has found their tribe with you as well. This is so great. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention or talk about? Actually, wait, back it up. I'm curious. Okay. Sorry, I have a lot of questions. The adult classes you teach, is that very similar to what you do with kids, or is that something a little different?
No, it's a little different. It's something I've never done. I actually just started doing. I'm like 2 weeks into my first adult class that I've ever offered for just adults, virtual class. So it's definitely different. Adults don't respond the same way to living characters. So if I dress up like a Viking and do a bad accent, they're not going to be as engaged as, the 7 to 11-year-olds that I usually work with. So what I have going right now that I'm in the middle of, and it was kind of my proof of concept to see if this was something I wanted to do. It's a 5-week course. So it's every Monday for 5 weeks, hour-and-a-half class, and it's on the history and development of the sword. So I've got a halfway decent little library here of sword history and things like that. And I've just been taking my students through, everything from the first swords, showing up at the beginning of the Bronze Age, up through, advances in iron and steel and the design and form of swords and how that informs the way that they're used and what it can tell us about the time that they're from and the cultures that developed it. So I really try and take a holistic look at, warrior cultures from around the world, Europe, Asia, Africa, India, Japan, and just kind of explore the development of this really unique piece of our consciousness. The sword is just everybody is kind of drawn to it. It's in symbolism everywhere. There's something about it that's ingrained in our psyche as human beings. And it's something that it's a topic that I'm really passionate about that I don't often get to teach because it's a big you can't do it with kids for the most part. So getting ready, being able to sit and have discussions with adults about these big themes wrapped up in this, my own little corner of the world that I've kind of fallen in love with has been really rewarding. So that's the class I'm in the middle of right now. I've got a few other ideas for adult classes that I might launch in the next couple of months. But they're probably going to be more on that line, being able to take something and kind of do a deep dive into it, both historically and culturally and philosophically. So, definitely different from what I do with kids, but rewarding in a completely different way.
Yeah, well, it seems like you found a way to kind of nourish all aspects of yourself, right? Like that love for the history. It's almost like how you found that kind of combination. Everything came together when you were sword training, and the master became the teacher, the teacher became the master, our student became the teacher became the student. Very cool. Very interesting.
And again, I'm just kind of falling. I don't even remember how I found the platform. I think somebody recommended it to me because I was talking about something completely different. So again, it's just something that kind of fell into my lap, and I was like, oh, sweet, another opportunity to be professionally weird. Let's do it. Let's give it a try. Jump in with both feet. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I probably, at some point, I'll probably have to start saying no to new weird ventures, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. So
not today.
Not today.
Wow, that's so cool, Dan. I think you have such an awesome story. I think that you being so immersed in the different aspects of the world and being so intelligent and have learned, and both from books and from experience, it's going to offer a very wide range of creative, amazing epicness into these games that people will be playing for you when you figure out how you want to execute that. So that's so cool.
Yeah, I'm really, like I said, once it's Mastermind in general is going to be a force, and I'm really looking forward to being a part of that, and being able to keep kind of pushing it forward.
Love it. We're so lucky to have you. Really, that's awesome. Is there anything we didn't get to touch on that you want to share? You want to talk about more?
I don't think so. I know I've done lots of rambling throughout this, so hopefully it's been a coherent conversation.
I thought it was awesome. I loved listening to all of it. I ramble as well, but I thought, I was just so immersed in your story. I was like, tell me more. So I'm sure everyone enjoyed it as much as I did.
Well, thank you very much for letting me kind of indulge. I don't often I do a lot of storytelling for a living, but it's not very often that somebody wants that much of my story. So I'm really happy to have been able to share. And I hope there was some nuggets of useful wisdom or encouragement in there. And the only thing, be weird, embrace your weirdness, and there's really no downside. Okay, depends on how weird your weirdness is. But for the most part, embrace your weirdness and just be open to the things that are coming your way. The more you're open with yourself about what you love and what makes you happy, the more you'll start to see opportunities to do that every day. And that's the thought I'd like to leave people with.
Yeah, that's a great note.
To end.
So thank you so much. And where can people find you, contact with you?
The best way to find me, you can find me on Facebook. Just search Dan Burns Swordsman on Facebook. I'm there. Go to danburnsswords.com. You can find a link to my Facebook page and my Instagram, which is woefully lacking, through that. And you can also find my profile under the Game Masters for Hire with Mastermind. Reach out there. If you've heard me talk and there's something, just because I don't have any games going on right now, if you've got a game you want to play in or you want somebody to run, and I've made you feel like I'm the person you might want to run that game, reach out to me via Mastermind and let's figure it out. Let's jump in with both feet, and I look forward to playing with someone out there very soon.
Wonderful. It's coming. It's coming real soon. I think people are fired up. I know I am. I'm like, I want to get my own suit of armor. I want to learn how to make my own suit of armor. It's all like, I'm very inspired right now. Well, thank you so much, Dan. I had so much fun talking to you. And everyone, we have these sessions every Tuesday and Thursday so that you can get to know our Game Masters for Hire a little bit better and get to know everyone's unique personality and all of their epicness. And then you can find out more about Dan and all of our other Game Masters for Hire at mastermindadventures.com. All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thanks so much for this.